Hello, Beanies. Well, Christopher has set me up a YouTube channel, we think. So I'm going to try reading Dogger and see what happens and see if you can all get onto it. Okay, this is one of my absolute favourite books and it always used to make me cry at the end, or very nearly cry. So we'll see what happens this time. So it's Dogger and it's by Shirley Hughes. Okay, and there's Dogger. Once there was a soft brown toy called Dogger. One of his ears pointed upwards and the other flopped over. His fur was worn in places because he was quite old and he belonged to Dave. There's Dave playing with him. Dave was very fond of Dogger. He took him everywhere. Sometimes he gave him rides in his trolley. Sometimes he pulled him along on a lead made of string like a real dog. And when it was cold, he wrapped him up in a piece of blanket. Now and again, Dave's mum said that Dogger was getting much too dirty. She showed Dave how to wash him in a bowl of soapy water. Then they hung him up by his tail on the washing line to dry. There's Dave watching him being hung up. Dave's baby brother Joe liked hard toys. He liked putting them in his mouth and biting on them because he was getting teeth. There's his little brother, biting away on his dummy. Dave's big sister Bella took 7 teddies to bed with her. Every single night she had to sleep right up against the wall to stop herself from falling out. But Dave liked only Dogger. There's Bella, look, right against the wall with all her teddies. But Dave only liked Dogger, nothing else. One afternoon, Dave and Mum set out to collect Bella from school. Mum took Joe in the pushchair and Dave took Dogger. Next to the school gate where the mums waited was a playing field. Some men with ladders were putting up coloured flags. Mum said that there was going to be a summer fair to get money to buy things for the school. Dave pushed Dogger up against the railings to show him what was going on. There you go. There's the picture. See? There's Mum and Joe and they're waiting at the school gates, and there's Dave pushing Dogger up to see the men putting the flags up. Just then the children started to come out of school. An ice cream van came round the corner playing a tune and Bella ran up with her satchel flying. Mum! Mum, can we have an ice cream? Mum gave her the money for 2 cones. Joe didn't have a whole ice cream to himself because he was too dribbly. There they are. There's the ice cream man and Bella asking for money for the ice cream. On the way home, Dave walked beside the pushchair, giving Joe licks of his ice cream. Joe kicked his feet about and shouted for more in between licks. Wasn't Dave kind? Look, there he is. There he is. He's got his ice cream and he's giving Joe licks. At tea time, Dave was rather quiet. In the bath, he was even quieter. At bedtime, he said, I want Dogger. But Dogger was nowhere to be found. Dave's all ready for bed and no Dogger. Mum looked under the bed. She looked behind the cupboard. She searched the kitchen. Look, there she is, searching everywhere. And underneath the stairs, Dave watched anxiously through the banisters and Joe watched through the bars of his cot. There. Where has Dogger gone? Oh no. Bella joined in to look for Dogger. She turned out her own toy box in case he was in there, but he wasn't. When Dad came home from work, he looked for Dogger too. He searched in the shed and down the garden with the torch, right down the garden path. But Dogger was quite lost. Dave was very sad when he went to bed. Bella kindly lent him one of her teddies to go to sleep with, but it was not the same thing as Dogger. Dave kept waking up in the night, missing him. Poor Dave, he doesn't look very happy, does he? Yeah, he isn't cuddling that teddy. Poor Dave. The next day was Saturday and they all went to the school summer fair. The playing field was full of stalls and sideshows. Look at all the stalls. Can you see them all? Look, I'll hold it like that and I'll move it along carefully. Go carefully. Oh, I'll look over the top so I can see what I'm doing. Look at all those shows. Isn't a school summer fair an exciting place to go to? There was a fancy dress parade. Look at them all. Wow, look at them all dressed up in their fancy dress. It's brilliant. Then there were sports with an egg and spoon race right along the top and a wheelbarrow race right along the middle and a father's race right along the bottom. I wonder whose daddy's in the front. And look, three-legged race as well. And that's Bella at the front. Bella was very good at races. She won the three-legged race with her friend Barbara. Wouldn't you like to go in for a race? They asked Dave, but Dave didn't feel like racing. He was missing Dogger too much. He doesn't look very happy, does he, poor Dave? Not very happy at all. Then another very exciting thing happened to Bella. She won first prize in a raffle. It was a huge yellow teddy bear wearing a beautiful blue silk bow. He was almost as big as Dave. Dave didn't like that teddy at all. At that moment, he didn't like Bella much either because she kept on winning things. He went off on his own to look at the stalls. Look how big that teddy is. And look at Dave, hands in his pockets, going off to look at the stalls. He was miserable. One lady had a toy stall full of knitted ducks and cars and baby dolls in bonnets. And there, at the very back of the stall, behind a lot of other toys, can you see the stall? Full of toys, and right at the very back was Dogger. Oh no, he was wearing a ticket saying 5p. There were a lot of people round the stall. Dave tried to explain to the lady that it was his Dogger who had got lost and somehow been put on the stall by mistake, but she wasn't listening. He looked in his pocket. He had 3p, but that wasn't enough. He ran to find Mum and Dad to ask them to buy Dogger back at once. Dave went everywhere in the crowd, but he couldn't see Mum and Dad. He thought he was going to cry. At last he found Bella by the cakes. When she heard about Dogger, she and Dave ran back to the toy store as fast as they could. Look, he found Bella. And there he is trying to talk to the lady and she won't listen. Oh, poor Dave. But something terrible had happened. Dogger had been bought by a little girl. She was already walking off with him. Dave began to cry. Bella ran after her and tried to explain that Dogger really belonged to Dave and could they please buy him back. But the little girl said, "No." She said that she had bought Dogger with her own money and she wanted him. She held on to him very tightly. Dave cried and cried and cried. And the little girl started to cry too. But out of the corner of her eye, she caught sight of Bella's big yellow teddy. She stopped crying and put out her hand to stroke his beautiful blue silk bow. Oh, I wonder what Bella's thinking. What do you think? She looks a little bit troubled, Bella does. But then she makes a decision. Then Bella did something very kind. "Would you swap this teddy for my brother's dog then?" she asked. Right away, the little girl stopped crying and began to smile. She held out Dogger to Dave, took the big teddy instead and went off with him in her arms. Then Dave smiled too. He hugged Dogger and he hugged Bella round the waist. "Oh, thank you, Bella," he said. "Oh, thank you, Bella." That night, Dave had Dogger in bed beside him and Bella was practising somersaults. "Shall you miss that big teddy?" Dave asked her. "No," said Bella. "I didn't like him much, really. He was too big and his eyes were too starey. Anyway, if I had another teddy in my bed, there wouldn't be room for me." And there she is, doing headstands with all her teddies. And there's Dave with Dogger. Wasn't she the kindest big sister? Isn't that lovely? And there they are, all tucked up in bed. And it used to always make me cry when I read this, because kind big sisters are the best thing. Love you all lots. I hope you enjoyed that story. That's Dogger. Say bye-bye, Dogger. And I'll try another one another day. Bye-bye, darlings. Love you all.